That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Moving On, the 13th feature directed by Paul Weitz, which premiered at the 2022 Toronto International Film Festival, where it also then played at the Palm Springs Film Festival earlier this year alongside 80 for Brady, also starring the two leads of this film, Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin.
You told me we reviewed a Paul Weitz film?
Paul Weitz.
Paul Weitz?
Yep, his last feature, Fatherhood, starring Kevin Hart, which was a true story about some white people starring some black people. That really is an odd movie. He's probably best known for some other items, however. His earlier part of his career, he co-directed, I think, the first three features with his brother Chris Weitz, including American Pie, About a Boy, Down to Earth. Also Little Fockers is a notable one in there. And a really odd film with Julianne Moore as a captive opera singer called Bel Canto, which I suggest you check out, maybe for not the, proper reasons.
I agreed to watch this movie because I like Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda. Same. I had no idea what it was about. This movie caught me so off guard.
And the thing I forgot to mention is Paul Weitz previously directed Lily Tomlin in 2015's Grandma, which also is a dark comedy with significant subtextual undertones.
Yeah, this movie's quite dark, so I'll provide a trigger warning now because the plot involves sexual assault and murder. Mm-hmm. The basic story is there are three friends who met each other in college 60 years ago. So now they're like women in their 80s. And one of them, named Joyce, has died. So we start the film at Joyce's funeral, and her other two friends, Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda, show up. And it's clear...
Claire and Evelyn.
It's clear that those Lily and Jane have not kept in touch. So at the funeral, the minute Jane Fonda sees Joyce's husband, widower, played by Malcolm McDowell.
Yep, Howard.
She makes a beeline for him, and she tells him, "I'm going to kill you." And she's not playing. Why does she want to kill him? Because many, many years back, Malcolm raped Jane. But she didn't want to say anything because she thought that would ruin her friend's life. So instead, she let it ruin her own life. And we can get into who she has become. But yeah, her plan is to kill this man over this weekend because the funeral's in California, but Jane lives out of state. So she's not very well prepared. She thinks she's going to shoot him. So she goes to buy a gun, but can't buy a gun because she doesn't have a California license. She does get a hold of one. So the question is, does she kill him? No, she tries to. Mm-hmm. She gets a hold of a flare gun. And right as she's about to shoot him, because the two of them are having an argument, Malcolm, appears to have a heart attack, but it's just like an anxiety attack. He ends up in the hospital. He's kept overnight for evaluation. And Jane shows up to the hospital and tries to smother him with a pillow, but Lily stops her. So the next day, it would appear that maybe Jane has moved on, but as she's about to go to the airport to go back home, she makes a pit stop at Lily's apartment to give her something. And while she's there, she falls because a dog jumps on her. So now Lily has to take Jane to the hospital. So as Malcolm's leaving the hospital, he's checked out, Lily and Jane are driving through the parking lot, and they almost accidentally hit him. So he's like at the hood of their car screaming at them. And then he's like, whatever. And he darts across the parking lot, and a truck hits and kills him.
Looking like the Kaiser Permanente parking lot, but yeah.
Yeah, on Cadillac. But the final scene is Jane and Lily at his funeral, and the two of them walk off into the sunset. So it would appear that they've rekindled their friendship, the end.
Thank you, Kismet.
This movie was wild. I laughed, I cried.
This is definitely like a rape revenge comedy. It has all those tropes of something like... I wanted the title to be over the name of a band I like, She Wants Revenge, because that... I think that would have been more fitting. But it's not unlike I Spit on Your Grave, but from the perspective of a much older woman, which I found intriguing.
Overall, I thought it was good. I do think there are some plot points that muddle it, but it's weird because the film's very short. It's under 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. So it's odd that I feel like maybe we could have removed a couple things, but Should I just go through my notes?
Removed a couple things and or strengthened some things.
Sure.
I actually wanted the tone to be much darker because
Yes.
I wanted to get into these kind of how both of these women, Evelyn and Claire, kind of broken from these experiences relating to Joyce and how her funeral kind of brings all of this back with a vengeance.
My first note is I think Jane looks great because I was really bothered. I mean, she's on my worst list for hair and makeup for 80 for Brady.
Sure.
But in this one, I thought her wig looked great. I think she looks great. I like how she's dressed. So that made me happy. Okay, at the funeral, the tone is very light, even though that she drops this bomb that I'm going to kill you. Because as Malcolm McDowell's giving the eulogy for his dead wife, Lily Tomlin walks in through the wrong entrance. So she's actually on stage with Malcolm. And she's just running her mouth the way Lily Tomlin does, which I thought was funny.
It's funny, but again, I wanted the funeral and then at the wake, Jane's walking around with a butcher knife. And I think they should have played that up more, or that shouldn't have felt comedic at all.
I agree. I mean, we might as well get to it. I wish that it wouldn't have been... Because what's happened to this woman has obviously traumatized her. Because what do we know about Jane? She has been married more than once and divorced more than once. She has a family, like children and grandchildren. The opening scene is her leaving her family saying, like, I'm heading off at this funeral. No one seems to care.
Watch my corgi named Dashiell.
She's obsessed with her dog and them taking care of it, and everyone seems annoyed by her. So it seems like she has spent all of her life since the attack feeling away, like it's affected her. And then what do we know about Lily? What I didn't mention, which is very important, is initially when Jane tells Lily, she's like, I've never told anyone this, but Malcolm raped me and I'm going to kill him. And she's like, well, girl, good luck. I don't want shit to do with it. But at the wake the next day, Lily gets up to give a speech and she goes, well, Joyce, back in college, oh, she was a lesbian and we were lovers and we would still be together. But of course, society 60 years ago, it wasn't acceptable. And everyone's like, you're a liar. Lily's like, I have proof. She wrote me letters, but she doesn't have the letters. And Malcolm, like, embarrasses her in front of everyone. So after that, Lily's like, yeah, let's kill him.
And she lives in an assisted living home, and she is the one that has finagled a way to get this flare gun after bartering with some bacon, which I thought was kind of entertaining.
That was a cute scene. But what we get from the... Because they had a moment that made me cry where Lily's saying, like, to Jane... Look at all you have. You have a family back home. You have kids, like all the things you accomplished. And Jane tells Lily, yeah, but you were the one who got to live your life because Lily is an accomplished musician. But then because she was single, because she never had a man or a family, she's kind of like she ended up having to sell her cute little home to live in this assisted living. She doesn't have much money. So, you know, the grass is always greener. But they have more in common than they think.
I think the part that I felt most emotional at was when Fonda has her reunion with Richard Roundtree playing Ralph, her first husband.
Which I also didn't mention. So Malcolm invites Richard Roundtree to the funeral because he knows Jane's going to be there. And they immediately reignite their...
Yes, but he takes her back to meet his daughter and 2 grandkids. And because obviously after they broke up, he moved on with his life, but he never knew why. And then it dawns on us that she was so tight-lipped about this rape that her life was completely derailed, and she didn't even tell this man that she loved. And it was touching, because he was always left wondering, and he thought it was because she's white and he's black, and maybe her father got to her, and maybe that's why she bowed out and never told him. And it's just... was a very subtle testament to how we internalize all these things instead of communicating what's really going on.
That scene also made me cry. But Jane has a funny line because he's like, well, you know, I thought maybe it was because I was black, like you said. And she goes, oh, you think I suddenly realized that?
Yeah. But he had a good point. Like
he did, yeah.
Because she didn't, it was so abrupt, it sounds like.
Another funny scene is when Jane and Lily go to buy the gun.
With Haas Sleeman playing the man working at the
because they know nothing about guns, and then Lily's talking about like, is there well, it seems like Lily knows a little bit more, but then she's like, well, because I have arthritis and bursitis and like I can't hold a gun with recoil. I thought that moment was, again, it feels so odd because I feel like I've never seen a movie, at least like an American movie, where this subject matter of sexual assault with women of a particular age, and then it's kind of a comedy, but there's emotion to it. Yeah, I felt really odd throughout the entire thing.
It feels odd because it feels like it should be in a different language, maybe French, starring Isabelle Huppert, because it feels very much like something I'd see on that side of the pond. But
another scene that made me cry is in Lily's assisted living facility. There's another resident, the one who you mentioned with the bacon and the gun. He has a grandson who often visits. And we understand that the little boy visits with Lily, and maybe he's just a kid, but he likes to play dress up. So he likes to wear heels and jewelry and dresses, and Lily provides him with that. But so then on this day, the kid comes and he's like, can we play dress up? And she's like, I'd love to, but I'm really busy. But you know what? You can have some of my jewelry. So she lets him go to the jewelry box, and he chooses a pair of clip-on earrings. And then later, so that made me cry. And then at the end of the film, the little boy comes back and he's like sad because clearly his parents found the earrings and are making him give them back. So then Lily goes out to confront the parents, and that doesn't go well because they have a dog, and the dog jumps on Jane Fonda, which causes her to fall and break her arm.
Well, the parents are also presumably homophobic, and it's a highly emotional scene because she's saying, I wish I could be your grandmother.
Yes.
And again, I also really like that, but it also feels that it's kind of divorced from the rest of the plot, really. It almost feels like we need to give this old lesbian something to do that also showcases what a good person she is.
I agree. If there was one thing I would have removed was the little boy, because it really just felt like Lily Tomlin's character needed something to do since Jane is clearly the principal character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of this free floating element, and they tied in well enough. It just felt like I almost would have rather used that time to understand Evelyn more.
That being said, that dynamic between Lily Tomlin and the little boy could have been its own movie.
It could have been its own movie,
Yeah.
But then again, if you haven't seen Grandma from Paul Weitz, where Julia Garner finds Lily Tomlin, her grandma, and that movie they're running around town looking for money so they can give her granddaughter an abortion, which is also very dark material, but there's a lot of levity towards it. I think that film, that situation worked a little more easily with that comedy than this, because this just feels like, I don't know, this woman that has held on to this for 60 years, and her friend's not even cold in the ground. This is her time to reclaim herself, is so depressing. And
it is.
I just wanted a little touch more to show that she was made whole somehow from this experience.
Sure. Getting back to Richard Roundtree, there's a sex scene, which I thought was really nice because we don't often see that. And I thought it was handled really well, but also it felt, from my perspective, it felt realistic because, of course, Jane mentions to Richard, like, because he has a prescription bottle on the counter and he takes a pill and she's like, oh, is that Viagra? And he's like, no, it's my cholesterol medication. But I felt like it wasn't played for comedy. It was like very matter of fact. Mm-hmm. And then she says, do you have any condoms? I don't want to get pregnant, which of course meant to be funny. And then she tells him, like, I just have one stipulation, like, can I get into bed first and then you turn off the lights before I get undressed? And it just felt very honest and vulnerable, but also sweet. Mm-hmm. And then we don't see we see them share a lovely kiss, but then we fast forward to the next morning where she has to procure bacon for Lily to get the gun. And I thought it was funny that she's cooking the bacon and then Richard Roundtree's daughter and grandchildren live with him. So they wake up to the smell of bacon. And she's like, yeah, I'm making breakfast. And then we see her duck out quick. But then it was also in that same scene that Richard had given Jane a camera because he remembered when they were younger, she wanted to be a photographer. Mm. And that's where we learned that she didn't follow her dream to be a photographer. And he had purchased her a camera way back when and never had the chance to give it to her because she ran out on him. And then when she leaves the next morning, she leaves the camera there, which made me cry.
Mm-hmm. But at Malcolm McDowell's funeral at the end, I think it suggested that they might continue.
Because he returns the camera to her and then he says, can we see each other? And she says, yes, but I have to go have lunch with my friend. But she gives him a nice kiss, like clearly we're going to keep hanging out.
And of course, Malcolm McDowell, who's I think typecast probably is this awful, reprehensible person.
Yeah.
This would actually make a really good double feature with another recent movie he was in called She Will. It's kind of this witchy horror movie in which he plays a director that assaulted an actor played by Alice Krige, and she ends up getting her revenge, and that's a really weird, interesting film. But apparently he's the go-to person for being a Weinstein-y creep. But
What would you give this film?
3 out of 5.
I would give it 3 out of 5 as well. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.